we have some drums here first, correct?
Yeah.
We're gonna take a look at the song that we've been playing kind of parts of throughout this show. It's kind of it's a rock track. Was this recorded here at Signature Sound?
This was recorded here.
Oh, cool.
This was recorded at another time when I did another song for another tutorial. So this is pretty much recorded without EQ.
Okay.
I
wow.
wanted to record everything very dry so that when I use the other song in a different online tutorial, we could really hear the compression and the EQ and didn't already have that in it.
Yeah.
So,
So what we'll be hearing as a starting point isn't tracked in with any compression, EQ, any of that?
none.
Cool.
None of it. The vocal, however, the artist came here on a different day and tracked the vocal, so the vocal has a slight little bit of compression and EQ on it, I think. So, but well, with that,
let's take a listen to some drums and
Yeah.
see how some EQ might affect your decisions on mixing drums.
Okay, so first off, let's just play from the verse, and I'm going to play it back with no EQ. And then I'll play it back with just a quick EQ that I put on here the other day. So here it is with no EQ.
Gotta get my ducks in a row, gotta get them in a row.
So already, I mean, still good sounds in there. So let's add the EQ back in that I just put in. Not feeling that guitar yet.
Gotta get my ducks
I'll bypass
in
them.
a row, gotta get them in a row. Got an
Add 'em back in.
place to go, an important place that I've got to go.
Cool. So with just a few little moves, little EQ moves and EQ settings, I mean, it sounds a whole lot better. The drums sound a lot punchier, bigger. The bass is more defined. So
Can I take a look at the? Can we take a look at the kick drum EQ curve that you may have, and maybe go into depth about why you went there? Just I like how it rounded out, and rock track. It comes, a lot of the energy comes from the drums and the bass, the rhythm section, driving force, and I felt like the moves that you had made on the EQs really helped to bring that to the forefront of my attention. And that's ultimately our job as mixing engineers, is to catch the attention of the listener, and we have control over that, sort of.
yeah, absolutely. And this is a rock track. So it's got, the drums, if they want to, kind of maintain and fit into that genre, they need to be punchy. They need to have, some power behind them, and also definition. Were this to a jazz record, boy, it wouldn't sound jazzy.
Definition is a great word to use. That actually was, that word was escaping me, but that describes exactly what I was hearing. The kick drum sounds more defined now without all of the EQ, or I'm sorry, with the EQ that you had put on it. What EQ plugin are you using for this session, for the drums?
So I actually grabbed the Neve 1081.
Okay.
Just for the drums. It's a pretty versatile EQ. And it has a few more options than the 1073. I think it has 4, 5, or 6 bands with the filters.
Okay.
So it's a pretty classic EQ for kick and snare and drums.
Okay.
The 1081 sounds awesome. So let's pull it up. So these drums, there's a kick in and a kick out. So the kick in mic is actually mic'd inside the beater head, or inside the resonant head, just a little bit. There was a hole in there. Put that mic in, and then the kick out is actually a microphone outside of the kick drum. So let's just listen to the kick in mic with no EQ. Give me just a second here. There we go. There it is.
And this is just a kick in, right?
This is just the kick in mic. Yeah, and we may need to pump this up a little bit so we can hear it. So initially, what I heard was it's a little papery. I mean, I don't know if you're, hopefully the listeners and the viewers have decent speakers they can listen to, but it has a fair amount of punch. It has a pretty good low end in it, but it's kind of papery. It has a little, there's some things in the middle that I don't really like, and it needs to have a little bit more snap on it. So what we did, let me just bypass it really quickly so you can hear. So quite a bit of difference. Let me just start from zero. With a kick drum, I typically, well, it all depends on what's there, right? But this one, and sometimes here, this might be actually a good place to bring up the frequency analyzer, just to kind of see what's happening. So we have a lot of lows. There's a little scoop in the middle already, and then a little bit of that snapping that beater head in there. I kind of like where that's going, but for rock, it needs to fit in a little bit more. So we'll kind of define that a little bit more. So what I had done initially was take off just a little bit of the very low lows. So at about 47 hertz, this takes off. This is a roll off, so it's cutting the low frequency. And then I think I boosted it a little bit. So that's too much, you can hear it. But the Neve sound just sounds great. So a little bit there, and then a frequency, well, 60 hertz, 60 between, well, you want to maybe look at your kick drum, figure out where that's going to live. The fundamental frequency, going back to the first segment, with the kick drum is typically between 35, which is really low, and like, I would say 70, okay. 70 or 80, okay. Somewhere around there. It's typically a good frequency or fundamental frequency, because every kick drum has a note, right? You don't want to, if that kick drum is singing right around 60 hertz, you don't want to go cut 60 hertz, because then that's the fundamental, that's the power of that kick drum.
Maybe if you're experiencing some sort of like a buildup or something, and it's just undesirable, and you find a good frequency. I've had good experiences kind of going by octaves. If I found that 60 hertz was doing something that I enjoyed, I would also go and try whatever I'm doing at 120 hertz or at 30 hertz.
Absolutely.
Just because it's going to be the same energy, but in an incremental area that might be really where what you're hearing that you don't like is, or what you do like.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're mixing and thinking about EQ also, not everyone can listen to 60 hertz.
Right.
You know, when you listen on your computer speakers, I mean, unless, no, probably not, probably don't do 60 hertz, right? That's a big thump. So 120 hertz, they might actually play 120 hertz. So you want to make sure you don't cut out those harmonics, those octaves of that, so that translates well into all mixes or all speakers. Another frequency I typically go through with a kick drum is anywhere between 200 to 400 hertz. That to me is like that papery sound of a kick drum. So let's solo this up again. So with this EQ, I'm going to click this, and you can see this is picking the frequency, 220, 270, 330, 390. And I'm just going to put it a high Q, so that's a narrow bandwidth. I'm going to pull that out. And I'm going to kind of play with the frequency. Let's bypass it. I like what that's doing. Maybe it's too much.
That papery sound is definitely going away as you were making those changes.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. I mean, anybody can go, oh, let's boost the highs and cut the lows, or boost the highs, boost the lows a little bit. But it's a lot of it EQing, to me, is finding that frequency that doesn't fit right, and getting rid of it or moving.
What I'm hearing out of this is it's helping to isolate what you're looking at, so to speak. I mean, granted, we're all audio engineers. We don't really look. We use our ears, but still, when I'm envisioning the kick drum, like when the EQ was bypassed, it had, I could hear something there, and in EQing that, you're just kind of focusing the attention to what it should be. I guess that's partially up to taste of the mixing engineer, right? But
yeah, taste and genre and all that stuff. Yeah,
I feel that just in those two moves that you made alone, it helped to isolate and to kind of, I don't know, give it its own place, I suppose. It shaped it a little bit better.
Yep.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah, that's one of those. I think I may have taken that from that session with that engineer. So really, I love on a kick drum, an analog, an acoustic kick drum that I've recorded, to really somewhere between like 250 and 400. There's usually just a kind of a papery sound. So we get that out of there. And then I want to bring up the snap. That it has to snap on there, and that's usually anywhere between 1K and 5K. So I might bring it way up just to kind of hear what it's doing. Pull it down, hear what it's doing. Get a little bit, and I'll pull it back in the mix. Remember I said if you're going to solo, put it back in the mix. You hear it kind of come up there a little bit.
Gotta get my ducks in a row.
So let's move that up a little more, and then for a little bit more highs, a little bit more snap on that kick drum. Let's go with something a little higher, like what do we have here? 6K, 7 kilohertz. That's the
slap.
Yeah. There's bypassed. And it might sound a little funny by itself. Really listen to that snap, the high end. That's going to poke through and help out a lot.
How would it sound with the kick out microphone? Because on the same topic that we never the person who buys this record will never hear in solo the kick in. However, they might be able to poke their ears and their focus, their attention to the kick drum. But that was captured using two microphones. Do you ever maybe take those two channels, sum them to one, whether it's through a bus to an aux situation, and then EQ those as one instrument? Or do you kind of play with the two together in solo? What are some good advice about that?
Yeah, you could absolutely do that. I mean, the options are just about endless. I mean, with this one, I happen to know that these are fairly in phase with each other. That's one of the things we were going to talk about if we had time. But I also know that the kick out mic captured a lot of cymbals and stuff. Okay. So when I would go to the kick out mic, I know that I want to get rid of all that stuff out of it, because the kick out mic is typically the thump, the thud, and because they are perfectly in phase with each other, the two together sound pretty good in the low end.
Now, do you think that if you were to make exaggerated moves, maybe adding or cutting 15 decibels of any given frequency, that might affect the phase relationship between the kick in and the kick out?
It could, up at those higher frequencies, or the frequencies that we're making those moves at.
Okay.
It might make it, maybe not necessarily affect the phase relationship between the two instruments, but it might make it a little cloudy.
Okay.
That's kind of the best way I can describe the phase discrepancies that big EQ or large EQ moves do. It kind of clouds things up a little bit.
Do you think it could be, I guess, in another word, taking away from the separation, or from the intelligibility of the separation, because you're adding you cloudiness, kind of unclear.
That's something you want to listen for.
Okay, cool.
So let's. I'm going to bypass and unbypass and make sure that one's not louder than the other. We
Right.
talked about gain staging. It's actually a little bit louder when it's unbypassed, so I'm going to crank it up just a little bit. Cool. That's about right. Let's take a look at the kick out mic. So the kick out mic, if you can hear it, I'll pump it up a little bit. It's just the boominess. Just have the boominess there. That may have been recorded with a little EQ. Oh no, I've got my EQ is still on from last time. Okay, so there's the kick out mic by itself. It's kind of, there's nothing flattering about that. It's kind of nasty.
Yeah.
So I actually would take this and let's pull all the high frequencies out of there. So this right here is your high cut.
Those are your filtering options right there.
Yep. So low cut is the outside. That's low cut. High cut is this inside. So that's one advantage the 1081 has over the 1073. The 1073, remember, just for the high band only had a shelving EQ.
Right.
So this another reason why the 1081 is just great for drums. I'm going to go further than that and go back over here, dial it in, the highs again at 3K, maybe if my mouse works. Just pull it down some more.
Okay.
And then maybe I'll give it a little bit of cutoff at 47 hertz, but I'm going to go back down here to the low end again. Maybe crank it up. I don't know, something like that maybe. Let's hear the two together. And I think I still hear that papery sound in this guy. So what do we dial in? It was about 380, 390?
Something like that.
Oops. There we go. That's that boom, the rumble.
Yep.
They're just, love that frequency. I love taking out that frequency. Okay, together. Now bypass. That's going to stick out of that mix a lot more.
It sounds a lot more focused, and it sounds like it has its own spot, and it's taking command of that spot, both in the rumble area and in the kind of the slappier area, the part that really is going to poke through on all systems.
Yep.
That's incredible.
EQ in. EQ out.
Gotta get my ducks in a row. Gotta get them.
Would you just listen to that? That's insane.
So that's another reason why the 1081 is awesome for drums. That was probably one of my